G'day, champ. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing excellent. I mean,
That's the
really
way.
excellent.
That's the way.
I didn't even know this was the way until I got here.
Yeah,
I already thought it was the way excellent the way I used to know, but it keeps getting better in ways I appear to not be able to conceive of until I'm there.
I can completely agree with you with that. I'm just probably struggling at the moment to understand the capacity and the potential.
Sure. Um, was there specific questions you wanted to go into directly, or did you just want to hear a little bit about our present time?
We'll start where we'll just allow it to flow, mate. Like you're probably already picking up a lot of things. I'll just start with this and then we'll
Okay.
roll. It was about a month ago. I woke up. It was a Monday morning, and when I woke up, it literally felt like I had been not present for about 2.5 years. Like I mean, as if like where have I been for 2.5 years?
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting one to encapsulate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, since then, as you know, it's just been typical Grant stuff, mate.
So you did a couple things before that month ago.
Yeah,
I'm being told between 4 and 8 days before that specifically.
yeah.
Um, that changed a couple things in your resonance, which allowed an entirely greater amount of you to show up.
Okay.
So that part of you was the part that was not compatible with a couple things you did for 2 years. So you got to have that sort of back, but it came back with more. What you're probably not familiar with is, well, you probably are familiar with it actually, is that as that occurred, your environment started to change, like little things started to be different. Um, like, for instance, toast didn't taste like toast, and you didn't want to eat toast anymore, or something for
Yeah, there's
breakfast.
been a fair bit of that. The other
Yeah.
thing too is that I've had walls disappear. I've had doors come in and out of reality. It's
Hmm.
been yeah, quite comical.
Yes. It's distorting. Well, let's just say it's not distorting. It's distorting an old perspective, but it's awakening a view as to the material nature of things. We'll call the grounded nature of what we're observing. As you are committed to a new vibration, whether you consciously know you committed to it or not, your surroundings start to have a couple different little rule changes that you begin to discover almost. Well, I'm getting that you did discover them right away. You're saying, doors open, doors changing, likely ways that certain relationships that you would call a bit more 3D like began almost like speaking a different voice or a different approach. Not necessarily directly with you, but like they started seeming like they could be somebody else as well. Um, but there's this thing that September really was bringing up for people who are particularly sensitive. They would get the biggest front row seat looking at it. Um, is that there were so many downloads that came in through September. It practically got people to try to stop doing things altogether and just start spring cleaning so that they had room to incorporate all these wonderful levels of elevated perception. You're probably familiar with that too.
Yeah,
So this perception is not something you'd read about. This is almost like at the occult level of mystery, almost like wondering who else has this experience, or who else has access to these perspectives or downloads or information. And the body itself and the mind are in this place where they're trying to find a way of grounding it. It's like you simply know a particular truth, but you still have to see how it applies to everything around you.
Yeah.
So as a result, whether consciously or unconsciously, I'm getting many people started having longer sleep cycles in order to handle this.
Yeah.
As in sleeping, if they slept 6 hours a night, they're sleeping 8. If they slept 8, they're sleeping 10 or more. And there's this burning desire to detach from people who are talking the old talk, speaking the old 3D program.
Yeah, I've been almost allergic to that, Julian. The same as some of the, I don't want to really can them, but some of the people that are very much into some false mechanics and don't experience things, that just talk from a book. It's not making me angry. I don't even know the emotion to attach to it, but it's like a sign of frustration, and it's like I'm allergic to it.
Yeah, and it's like, do I turn around and walk away, or what can I do here? And there's that symposium of choice that you could involve yourself in, but you'll find that you just don't have the energy to go very long into that with someone.
Yeah, I can't. I'm almost ruthless, like in a sense, almost like a little bit of an asshole. Just like I can't even ascertain another bit of oxygen that you're going to waste communicating to me.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things I'm going to remind you that are qualities that are rare, that come with you specifically, because you probably still are not quite sure the specifics that separate you from most people. And these are things you chose.
Hence the call. I just got a quick one for you, mate. Obviously, I only booked this a couple of days. Mm-hmm. Have I come and visited you in dream state or anything like that between that time?
2 days ago.
Yeah, I did?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
And you actually, no, it wasn't exactly 2 days ago. It was more like 4 days ago, and then you booked.
Yeah.
You booked almost immediately after that.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing that obviously we'll get to, is not so much, it's obviously never concerning, but that amount of work that I've been doing, and even popping up in people's dreams, getting random calls and stuff, mm-hmm. I'm at a point now where I don't even know what I'm doing.
Let's talk about that. Let's make sure we talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Crystal's aware. Before you booked a session that I mentioned you. So she's also evidence to that showing up. And that experience. Almost like I might have said something like, I wonder what Grant is up to. And, your name didn't come up for months or something.
Yeah.
So what puts you in we're not going to call stands apart, but puts you in a place of perspective, is that you have some DNA mechanisms that are awake in you that a lot of people don't have, and it's basically your passion to share or to exercise those differences specifically. How it starts to play out is in this place where you easily find answers where others are just, they've given up a long time ago. Or they just give in to what everyone has decided is a good consensus belief. And so it's as if you can see deeper without trying, and it gives you this sort of energy that says, hey, it's not that complicated, it's not that hard, it's not, inconceivable. But at the same time, you're meeting this place where it's fairly inconceivable. You're noticing over and over that people are not able to just grasp some of the rudimentary appointments that their mind are trying to awaken them to. It's as if there's awakening going on, and you're not understanding why it's not so easy for everyone.
Yeah.
And so there's a place where you want to sort of insert your own DNA story in there, and yet there's a lack of interest on the surface. It's as if your story is an overload. It's just, it goes in one ear and goes out the other, because they can only chew on the first, minute or two. And they're, without chewing and digesting that, they can't keep going. You're probably already very familiar with that.
Yes.
So what you're basically owning is a lot of, we'll call downloads, a lot of things that have inspired you, a lot of instincts that are not animalistic, but more along the lines of like wisdom. Like you hold keys in your upper chakra that most people don't exercise. So, and that's in your throat, that's in your, your third eye and in your crown. You have access to those energies through, becoming aware that it's not so complicated, that it's just a practice and a finding of yourself. It's as if other people don't have the time or energy to go that way. It's like they want things more spoon-fed, less complicated decisions. But the decisions from your hand may look like they're complicated on the surface, but in fact, you make the decisions based on intuitive wisdom directly. And so when somebody else looks at that and they don't approach it from intuitive wisdom, they say, that's really complicated. Like, I don't know how I'm ever going to learn that. Okay?
Yeah.
That can be distressing, because you can't just give people downloads as far as you know. That you're going to find out is true and not true as we go along a little bit further.
Yeah.
So you're already in a position where there's some very key beliefs that hold no strength or conviction of use to you. These are things like mortality is fundamentally a different game in the way that you know it. It leads to a different kind of courage, because there's nothing really that functionally is in any way needing to stop you. Should you choose to walk through a wall, you can do it, or walk through an obstacle. So that builds a level of courage, this mortal limit that comes with the survival mechanism of the root chakra, old-fashioned energy. The old way that root energy was organized was in a survival, fight or flight type of way. That is not. It's almost like that is inconceivable for you to live that way. Even though your body does react with adrenaline and things like this, it steps out of that box very quickly, while others can really lose themselves in it.
Yeah.
So because of that very simple, and that's just one very simple difference, you start to not act like a human. And people instinctively don't really see you as a human, only on a, you know, like a first case, just meeting you sort of thing. A first impression, they see you as human, and maybe even a second impression. But shortly after, they say there's something very mysterious about Grant, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Something does not hold
I
him.
have. Yeah, I've got this. I've had the spook factor for a while, as you know.
And it's kind of like this person's like an open flame, like this person, we don't understand his courage, right? So it's a volatile thing on the surface as we begin to feel it.
Yeah,
It affects all of who you are. So you don't really know that you're that way until you realize that there's not many that are like that, and people are not used to how to communicate with you on the long term unless they have a really strong contract to learn from you. So, in general, the world is trained to have a particular type of walk and talk, and this is how you meet people, and this is how you talk about people, and then you sort of screw up that game as soon as you show up, and get people to think more than they're used to, and that can be uncomfortable. Just by, not even talking of spiritual concepts or anything, just by the nature of your vibration and the energy you put off, right?
yeah,
Because your energy actually is serving to empower others to be the same way, because you create a believability that this is possible, like a self-sufficient viability in a way, right?
yeah.
It's like if you met He-Man all of a sudden on the street, you'd say, well, if He-Man can show up, well then, why can't we see Superman or something, right?
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned those two characters, dude.
How so?
Um, I connected with, I'd say, the He-Man type archetype
Mm-hmm.
of a past aspect of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, I'd say like a Superman complex, but not so much the strength, more of the ability to manipulate the elements like Superman does and connect with those two beings.
Mm-hmm.
And they both had the same kind of message, and that was, well, and they did. I knew it was a part of me because of the way that they spoke, and was like, what the fuck are you waiting for?
Yes, and um, they both have a particular presence of personal responsibility, sovereignty, and a role of bringing liberation to those around them.
Yeah,
Now, on the one hand, if you're not associating with the archetype, this one starts to look like a savior element, right? It starts to look like a savior if you're not identifying with it, which can be very disempowering when a certain amount of time is given in your direction. The comparison between them and yourself. And that begins to look like an ego, right? It begins to look like, what makes this person so special? But it's a knowing. And that knowing is not derived by ego, but it certainly supports the way the ego operates. So at the same time, you can't really remove it. But ego, from another person's perspective, when they say that person has a big ego, it's another way of saying, I wish I could do what they did. It's not that the ego altogether is an infringement of their free will. It's more like a reminder of their not exercising their free will.
yeah,
Right? So it's like everybody should be able to be like He-Man. Why not? Everyone should be able to be like Superman. Why not? And the why not is like, well, I just wasn't born built that way. Like, that's not true. Anybody can be anybody, really. But the archetype itself is, a piece of the puzzle. Because it's, archetypes are used to easily cross conversational gaps when it's hard to describe things. But you were mentioning something earlier that we said we get back to. What was that you brought up in an interruption before I described your nature?
Um, it's probably to do with, as you know, I've been aware of what I have been doing,
Mm-hmm.
but over the past probably few months, it's gotten to a stage now where the the amount of work that I'm doing is I just don't know anymore.
Well, what I'm
And
being told is that you
yeah,
feel there's too much backlog,
okay,
which means that like the assignments and the projects, there's more than you're interested in doing. On the one hand, you are interested, at least you were more interested, but the work backs up, right? It's like
yeah,
there's more work than you have time to be able to do. Um, and that is a theme that plays out probably more regularly and leads to this place where you can probably feel like you're not very grounding because it's as if commitments are hard to keep more and more. And that's because of the fluid ground we're standing on at this time. You're not the only person going through it, but it's literally it's very simple. It's asking you not to do so much of this sort of commitment. You know that your presence can create a great amount of change, but in fact, you're more helpful by continuing to explore and go further with yourself.
uh,
The population is now ready. When I say population, I mean the people that will fill in the gaps that you were directly serving in, that made your mind feel good, that you agreed to do things. Others are filling those gaps.
I hope so, man.
Yes.
I hope
Others
so.
are coming up. They're learning about it, and um, and it's not that they might have known that you were the one previously doing it or doing something, but it's like you step away and that gap becomes obvious energetically to them, and so they step in. And so there's not like an official handing off of the baton. It's more like the baton is handing itself off.
Oh,
Does that make
beautiful.
is that clear?
Yeah,
So at this time, the people that that know the process of what awakening is, which is following what's coming in day to day, and what shows up in miraculous, spontaneous ways, is really what they're supposed to follow. It's almost like leave everything behind, be right now, and tomorrow you'll have more to be. Um, that has actually been a really regular theme in your life. Is this, keep up the pace with yourself, and keep stepping forward, keep following your own nose in a way. This world has a lot of room for people to ground and create steps for other people to follow and move up, and find their own stairway to their inner heaven and
yeah,
themselves. But it's almost like if anything, leave an acknowledgement of your past, and allow the echo of your actions to be enough for those that are sensitive, that are becoming newly sensitive, to pick it up easier than you had as a go the first time you went through it. So it's almost like energetic. It's like energetic lessons left behind by your actions. On the one hand, people like to write books and stuff that does
yeah,
this sort of thing, but that's actually more of a confirmation for their own mind, right? that's more of an attachment to the mind's need for concepts like legacies and grounding and whatnot. And the mind does know a lot about grounding, but it also has a limitation in understanding how to fly and how to move at super speeds. You've probably already come across a couple people that have moved very rapidly in a short span of time. Not necessarily beyond what you already understand, but have done a really quick sort of like catch up, like come up to speed type of thing on a great many things in a short span of time. And you say, wow, well, that's a really good job. Like, wow, I'm impressed,
Yeah.
You've seen them, they've probably interacted with you, or you've seen them in other ways. But that's what's going on. It's almost like you're leaving a wake that creates its own ripples. When you're on a motorboat and it creates like a wake of ripples, well, there's other ripples on the insides that are created as a result of the water separating behind you and coming back together. It's almost like ripples that are not part of the original wake but are still continuing as a result of the initial breaking of the space. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here.
Do whatever needs to come forth, Julian, because as you can probably state, mate, there's parts of me that there's a big question mark around certain things at the moment.
Okay, so you actually have a mission that's somewhat defined from the way that I can see it. I may not be in the capacity to understand enough, but maybe I'm just going to give you what I have and what I'm
that'd be awesome.
showed is that there's and this wouldn't worry you, is that you're really good in a shitstorm.
Yeah, man, that's where old mate shines.
But it's as if part of you has been convinced by who knows who that shitstorms are none of your business, none of anyone's business, and that no one should engage that. So it's as if somebody has tempered the heat that you are, tempered that fire that you are.
Okay.
That is, I don't know what the mystery is behind that, but I can say that you're ready for moment-to-moment critical decisions because your inner wisdom is very, very strong in those moments. You're very, very good in a pinch. You're very, very good in an extreme situation. When somebody's really at the precipice of either losing it or winning it, sort of thing within themselves. It's kind of like you're an EMT, really. And for you to sort of pick up like a regular job, just in the local clinic and taking appointments is almost like contrary to what you bring that's so special. Okay?
Yeah.
I want to say you're more of a rescue worker, but not rescuing, more like an incidental, perfect person to call when things are really climactic. Like you should have more like a hotline, to call. Because in that moment, your personality suits it, and your ego disappears. You find an extreme level of empathy, so that you get right in. You sort of like fit in without much explanation needed. And the intuition that you have is able to take on very intense themes that many people would feel afraid to tango with, right? Which is not your case. You've been taught, for some reason, this is another part of the thing that's shown up recently to sort of simmer your fire. It's as if something is taught or tried to teach you to offer more respect when you work with someone, with regards to the environment and the world and society, and and their place in it, as if what you're sharing. It's as if the mind thinks that the way that you're sharing it, you're asking people to be like you, but that's not the case. That's not what it is. By being direct, intense, blunt, very blunt, you're not asking people to say, this is how you solve your life or anything like that, but this is what you do when you get up against the wall. And you're the kind of person to call when somebody's backed up in an alley. But, for most people, their lives are not about being backed up in an alley. And so that's just sort of how, the idea is not to mimic the way you did it, but bring things to the surface in the way that people are not seeing what goes on around them, or the things that they are not paying attention to in their feelings, because your empathy puts you in their shoes with a better ability to reflect on what's going on than they're probably used to practicing. And so that immediately has an effect. And you probably already know how that's happened in the past, and how you've aided people in the past, and how you felt a lot of thanks from them. Right.
Yeah, the other one with that too is, with those situations, is the amount of dream work that I'm doing with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, dream work is like the place where you can go beyond some of the social rules that inhibit our ability to work together here.
Yeah.
And I mean social rules literally as practically the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
idea that somebody's in a pinch, you say, tell you what, buy me a ticket, I'll be over there as quickly as the next plane gets me there. I'm going to hold you tight, and I'm not going to let go of you until you've cried this diseased belief out of you. And people be like, check please, I'd like to get out of here. This is not the way I thought it would work. But you're like, hey, all right, then just, we'll do it in dream time, and you won't feel so bashful about it. But you understand.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm getting a little bit closer to what is this part of you that's doing a little bit of the yanking you back towards traditional comforts, even though that's not really what you're about, is traditional comforts. Is your mind doesn't understand what kind of world you really come from. You kind of belong in a comic book, where the rules of how things move rapidly and dramatically in a comic book are different than sort of the rules that we take for granted here. Okay?
Yeah.
And because of that, the story plays some very intense dramas, but that's how you sort of learn life in a very short span of time. The difference between an actual comic book and real life is that when people read comic books, that's almost like an approach they would prefer to have to life, but life in general does not give them the space to do that. You don't have that. You don't have much of that illusion in place. However, that illusion is continuously trying to tell you you're not in a comic book, or you don't. Things don't operate like a comic book, and you want to say, but they do. I know they do. And the mind looks around and tries to say, come on, who's with me? Who gets this? And you're kind of like alone in this. You're kind of like the lone superhero or something. And it doesn't respond in a way. You realize I'm really very alone with these skills. Like there are like Avengers teams, but when you take the time to get near like an Avengers team, you get a little tied up with the differences of each person's approach. And so that alone can develop drama. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Okay.
it's essentially why I just don't bother about
Right. It's kind of
doing
like
work
Batman
with
doesn't do
doing
team.
work with other people
Right.
because
Batman
they do
doesn't
a
do
lot of lip
teamwork very
service,
well.
but they do a lot of lip service, but don't step up to the plate. So I just go do
Yeah.
what I've got to do.
Well, um, let me put it another way.
All right, go.
You're more like the kind of person that would start a group than join one that already existed.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay? Because you know your chemistry, and you know exactly what chemistry that you would like to work with. And although there are groups that are really effective at what they do and their approach, it's not the pace you'll find yourself desiring. I'm thinking hard to see if I can be familiar with other people that are that play at your pace. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah,
But
that'd be interesting.
they are there, and I want to say they're most likely in Australia. Funny enough, if they're
Yeah.
not in Australia, they're probably in Eastern Canada.
All right.
If not in Eastern Canada, they're probably on East Coast United States, like like New York and Washington, Philadelphia type
Yeah.
placement. I feel like you're. I'm just gonna say it because I'm supposed to say it.
Yeah, it's me,
I
dude.
really feel like
Like,
you should be running a regular radio show for
okay.
people that are calling in and saying, "I got a problem," and you plainly spell it out. You don't really have a problem. You're just looking at it for whatever reason because you're very quick in your ability to drill in to people's or empathize and get into the what the ingredients of their hot sauce is. Because you're familiar with hot sauce. You've done hot sauce. You've done all the intense things that people don't want to talk about in a way. In your past lives and in this one. It's like, there is no dark side that you could be scared off from that someone can share with you. You see? And that people will open up to someone that they can say, this person can relate to me. Right? Whether by demonstrating that they can talk where I'm coming from, or they're ready to dive in. I mean, maybe there's a woman who's calls in or something like that and says, I'm considering an adoption because of this, and this, and this. You say, well, I've never had to go through, I'm considering an abortion, excuse me.
Yep.
You say, I've never gone through an abortion myself, but let's work on this. I'm prepared. Right? It's like, whoa, you've never had done an abortion, but the territory is clear for you. It's not the kind of challenge that most people would think, oh, I can't call a guy on this sort of thing.
Yeah, completely understand what you're saying, and that's probably been the more so of things over the past couple of months is it's almost now like when people say they read into your Akash, it's like now I just see the mechanics of how it all works and be like, well, here's this choice leads to that. That choice leads to that.
Yeah.
There's the mechanics of it. Work with it. There's the blueprint. You make the choice. Off you go.
Yes. It's practically instinctual because you've practiced it over and over again. And there was parts in your life, you're probably already aware, you did a massive amount of research to fill in all the little gaps of this time and space. But you've handled much of these similar themes or life experience archetypes on many different places, right?
Yeah.
Many different, and that's why you're here to contribute here at this time, because you're kind of vary in demand, but your mind doesn't know how, say, a business model is supposed to operate in that way.
Bingo.
Right. So your mind wants a business model operation system that that literally changes the game for you. And I want to say the people that you're going to find business in are going to be people that you find in obvious places of challenges. I want to say people that at like veterans or something, or people in a hospital, or people that are on the suicide hotline, or people that are fighting their relationships, or are taking in the programs of television and basically idolizing as if Hollywood has a rhyme and reason that everyone should be living. It's like, where do you find the people? You'll find them where the emotions run high and the tears flow quickly.
Yeah.
I want to say you have the ability for like 10 different jobs to do them better than people who have trained and gotten careers simply to do that. You should be, an extremely powerful therapist, relationship therapist.
I've got a quick one because you just brought something up that's made me jump again.
Okay.
We've spoken about this in the past, Julian.
Mm-hmm.
I'd definitely say over the past, probably since June.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of pests come my way, whether that be remote viewers or
Yep.
whatever like that. That's been very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And with the capacities that you're talking about at the moment, just really wondering how much of that is still in my field for our brothers in contrast to come and start to have a chat.
And you want them to.
I'm ready now,
Actually,
but
the point is to actually have them.
there's some type of thing that's I'm not sure. I can't even get my head around it or
Okay.
even look at it because every time I do, like go into meditation or whatever I try and do, as soon as I get to that point, I'm kicked out. It's like, you are under no circumstance are you allowed to find that information or how to do that.
Correct. Um, that's good you bring it up because it might take the rest of our time to explain that.
Okay.
So you're already familiar with the bigger role that the partners in contrast play to create this sandbox called the 3D society,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and they guard the keys to how they made it all that way closely. And the keys get into very occult practices, as you know,
Yes. Yep.
and whenever anybody gets to a point where they can begin understanding those occult practices, like, oh, that makes all the pieces fit together, I can just do this myself. That's when they say, wait a second, we got someone here who's at our level of understanding. And what we need to do is we need to have a talk with them, or we need to do whatever we can, because if we have somebody with those abilities working on the other side and breaking down the box with all the skills we're using to keep the box up, that's our number one target. So there's a larger story, and it's going to have to come from where I have had my recent experiences with looking at things from beyond the veil.
Yeah, and that's essentially why I think I'll not think I know now I'm ready because
Okay.
same as you, it's I've literally got a foot in I'm not going to say both worlds. It's almost like four different worlds now, and being able to see that perspective and be like, let's start the conversation.
Yes. So beyond the veil, they explained the ascension process,
Mm-hmm.
or what everyone is identifying as the ascension process,
Yep.
as everybody coming to realize a minimum level of awareness of their oneness, like awareness of their sovereign power, awareness of their true creator nature, right? It's not even like 100%. 100% is God, right? Just being God. But it's somewhere in the margins of around 70%. 70% of the time you're exercising your sovereign abilities to create as you choose. 30% of the time you're facing your limitations. You're
Yeah.
facing, the pieces in the toolbox. You're playing with the pawns of the board game that you're currently standing in, right? So you're open to explore the game, but 30% is the grounded rules that you really are to find sovereignty over time, move past that. So since the end of 2012, the Great Split was the Great Timeline Split, where everybody made a decision where they either decided that they were going to that they were interested in exercising the validity of living and being alive, versus feeling that they're not worthy, that they're not a contribution to human experience. This is known as the 50% split. So those in 51% move to this reality, and those below the 50% move to the other reality. Now, that split is the last timeline split, official timeline split. So all 6 billion went both ways. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Both realities went on. The difference now is that you can't go to that other reality where you've experienced apocalypses and everything goes to shit because you vibrationally think you're shit. Okay?
Yeah.
This world is, I'm worthy. This timeline is, everything, has a purpose eventually, and I'm going to find it. And you're going to find yourself in that. There's those that don't even have to look for the purpose. All they need to do is observe themselves as worthy. You're either spending half your day saying I'm worthy, or half your day feeling like shit. And now everybody is spending more than 50% saying they're worthy, in ways that the ego doesn't entirely own. Almost more like I just know I'm worthy, but I don't even have to know why. Right? I just know that I belong, and that I'm useful to live. I've got a life in front of me that is worth living. Right?
Yeah.
Now that's continued to progress since then. The average is moving up close to 70% now. 70% by those that I met beyond the veil is what's considered the escape vector. Which means if you're spending 70% of your time feeling like you deserve to live, and not only do you deserve to live, but at around 70%, you start to understand why you deserve to live, then you're in a position where the majority of your thoughts will continue, no matter how crummy a day you have, or days, you'll always return to that place where you say, there's a reason for me to keep breathing and living and going on, because I'm an explorer. Every time that you have a dip that you go down and you get your head under the water or in the mud, that's experiencing amongst the themes in the 30% where you don't see yourself as valuable, and you experience that so that you can dig yourself out and come out without that limitation any longer. It's like every internal struggle you have that you conquer in yourself leaves you that much more empowered without having that limit anymore, right? Or not as much of that limit anymore. And this direct a 50-50 is literally what's called entropy. Energy and consciousness seeks to find value in itself as a valuable experience. So we're people that explore life and find value that creates more opportunities for value. If you create more opportunities for seeing less value, then that is what's called closing off. You keep closing all the doors, and when all the doors are closed, then you're dead, right? When there's no hope, that there's no point in continuing to live. But in this place, everyone here is on a trajectory for having all the reasons to live for centuries now in a single lifetime. All that potential is in front of us. We don't know, many people don't know how that's possible, but because we're in the escape vector, which means we've accelerated our personal sovereignty and knowing that we're a valuable asset to creation by exploring and creating ourselves in just our own unique way, that uniqueness is inherently a valuable asset, and that repetition and mimicking is inherently wasting time because it doesn't actually drive new experiences. This is what's coming forward. So as we move through the next year, in my particular timeline projection around this time next year, we're at 99% aware. Individuals are 99% aware that they serve a function in the greater picture of existence. They don't even need to be spiritual. They just need to say, you know what? I'm doing everything right. I'm feeling good. I'm exploring life. I'm creating life. I'm creating and I'm exploring, which is a balance for each person to both explore and create. That balance is, different for each person. But there's a never-ending supply of experiences when you choose to explore and create. Creating is grounding. Exploring is allowing. And so that continues to push forward. Now, at that point where 99% of people are in awareness, I'm told specifically, everybody realizes a degree of oneness in themselves, like 1.000. It's not actually one. It's a degree of oneness that is about 70% aware. So you still carry about 30% of challenges with you, and those will be the basis for new worlds at that point. Okay? So the new worlds are based on, well, we've got a couple interesting little challenges. Let's go start a world that explores those specific challenges in great depth. Okay? More depth than we have here.
On a quick one with that,
Yes.
I don't feel as I've helped set up the blueprints and frameworks for those already.
Yes, exactly. Because that's exciting. People can find excitement and their escape vector in that. Okay? I'm calling escape vector as if it leads to ascension, but it's really a degree of inner potential that says, I can't go back. I'm never going to lose this potential. Right? It means there's nothing that can get you back to suiciding or something like that. Right? There's nothing that can get you to fully give up on experience, because you always have close enough to you experiences that show you that no one really owns you. It's a degree of personal awareness of sovereignty. So that 1% that does not that is not in that escape vector, that is not in that place of awareness, that 1% is actually very important, because that 1% is the one that takes everything that is a part of people's different 30%, takes all of that that's remaining, and creates a world to explore that in depth. So they actually don't decide to go on and explore new worlds. They take the worst ideas, the most terrible ideas that still remain in human consciousness, and they reissue the 3D experience.
Is that the Mad Max world that is on the timeline?
It's a definition of it. It's one way of looking at it, but it's not. It's like saying I'm taking this back over to that other timeline, but the one where everything goes to shit.
Shit,
Except
yeah.
this is even independent of that. Okay, so a
All right,
world is
yeah,
created
yeah.
every
You've just,
second,
yeah, one
right?
tick, man. Yeah, one tick. I just need to write that down because you've just sparked my curiosity. It was a couple. Oh, look, about 3 months ago. Was if I shifted onto that everything goes to shit timeline and helped some individuals to usher there along. It wasn't so much teaching; it was kind of like almost like an ascended master type trick.
Mm-hmm.
Then, as I come across, I had to go through that vector, as you call it, to come back into the now. Is when that unfoldment happened, and
Mm-hmm.
that was
Mm-hmm.
next. That was between July and December of next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That. Yes, that's a very good explanation. Um, Now, the thing I was going to share next
Yep.
is that there are those that hold the old world but don't judge it for being terrible because they're essentially like Lucifer, right? It looks like he's doing a real shit job, but he's the one that's willing to hold the shit and say there's great fertilizer in this shit, right? This,
That is a very good terminology of
yeah,
old mate Lou.
yes,
Very good. I like it.
yes. I was told specifically in English linguistics a couple of things that are very interesting. The one, the aspect of realizing oneness and God within is also matches the word WON, like I've won. That's the
Yeah,
escape vector. I've won. I've figured it out. I figured out how to purposefully succeed at life now. I know what it's like. I know what it takes. I know what it feels like to continue to add positivity and lean towards a degree of positivity in my life. So it's called winning or one particularly. And the human experience, the box, okay, is literally is between the word one and the word shit. All right?
yeah,
So one is like the crown and shit is like the anus. Okay?
yeah,
That's the full spectrum of all chakra energy, and that's the human spectrum of the 3D world. 3D as we're calling it. So those that carried and held the space for the human box, calling it 3D, they own and understand everything from end to end. And shit isn't even that bad. Shit is fertilizer for the plant kingdom and whatnot, right?
yeah,
So you go on to another world if you decide to explore the ass end of reality. You'll find you're like a god for another world, right?
yeah,
So the end to end of that is to keep everybody in that sort of like corral them in a way like cattle into that box because everyone came to play in the box and the job is to keep the cattle in the box for as long as possible so that, and this is another conspiracy word, so that there's the greatest harvest, okay, which
yeah,
is the cattle all liberating themselves, all fully maturing to a degree where the most of them become God creators of their reality and know how to do it really well. So the idea is once you're at a degree of awareness of oneness, then you go off and create a multiverse by each individual creating their own definition of perfection as derived by their heart coming through them. Okay, so everybody creates a new box of their own and world, and it's going to be about, I'm being told, 15 or 20 years for people to sort out what they want the world to be. Like
yeah,
they're going to continue to explore here on Earth. Some won't hang around that long; they'll know right away, and that will be a great deal of we'll call the light worker community since they're kind of out of a job in a way. They'll go on and say, "Great, now I get to go create
yeah.
my
I can,
space."
yeah, I can go. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see space. Yeah,
right. But it's like you don't get your ticket to ride until you've supported that harvest as best as possible. The harvest has been, negatively used to describe, killing souls off or something for some energetic benevolence of some
Yeah,
impossible way to connect to it.
yeah. That's probably the thing that's I'll say pissing me off at the moment is still the people that are playing the zealot game, and it's like that's what I was saying to you before, mate. It's like I'm not even going to open up my mouth anymore.
So those that remain to hold the box, they're basically the next version of Illuminati, Cabal, or whatever. And because they know how everything operates, they kind of sort of get to live like a cushy life. As long as they own the context of their greater purpose, holding this box together as sort of gatekeepers. That is where we get to what you are understanding as the gatekeepers to something telling you don't go beyond the box. Okay?
Yeah.
In order to go beyond the box, we'll say go beyond the veil, you have to own a particular level of your own escape vector where you say, you know what? I am so imblemishable, and I know this in my oneness, that literally I fear nothing and any challenge. I will literally take on challenges, and I will bring light to the challenge. Okay?
Yeah.
And one of the greatest illusions is of death, the sociological construct describing death and death of the body and murder and all these things. It's a Groundhog Day. The real consciousness experiment does not leave you in the dust when your body gets mutilated. You get to go back at any point and reemerge and start over like you rewound the VCR. And you cut yourself off from full knowing so that you can continue to explore the depths of the disconnects. But you can change all the controls. You're the programmer when you're beyond your body. And so that place where you go into the tunnel where you're in the light, you can return from that at any point and say, I'm going to, I get a life review, I look at it all this way, and I'm going to make a change. Not unlike the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. He retains his memory only enough so much that he can carry over. And, he was a curmudgeon at the beginning, but he became a very alive soul as a result, you see.
Yeah.
And the repetition was no longer hampered him, really. He had his escape vector when he was no longer attached to the fact that he was caught in a loop, okay? When you're familiar with this and you're in vibration of that, then you get to see things what I call Cloud 9, which is the cloud in which all the ascended masters that keep returning, they've already achieved their escape vector in consciousness. They keep returning and sharing their experience in various ways with everyone that's still learning to get it. Okay? It's like a spiral. And the eventual spiral leads down to each time, the first time you come up and you realize, wow, I'm doing such a great job, you can go back and you can make a really big impact. And each time that you do that, you're really sort of like helping more and more vibrationally raise their vibration to a place that is considered the escape vector or the ascension level of vibration. And so everything that you do, either directly with an individual, but more so in a way that vibrates in a way that somebody learns from you, and that carries on and becomes a grounded sense of knowledge and wisdom that really changes them. That that person changes them. That the 100th monkey element.
Yeah.
That goes on, and so having a conversation with one person can be all that you really need, especially when it's the right person. But the mind doesn't sort that out. The mind doesn't pick and choose. Only the higher self can navigate you through, what effect you're really having. And only when you're in that vibrational space of the Cloud 9, and seeing it from a broader perspective do you get to? And many people, they get to the cloud nine space through substances, through heavy meditation. But in your case, you want to address those that are holding the box. It's not so much about direct self-discovery, but it's as if on one level, you want to sort of like clear the air with regards to what they actually mean to everybody in the box by having the experience of sorting out who they are, so that you can tell everybody in the box in the last days to tell them, hey, these are the real heroes here. These are the real guys that have been doing the real strong work. We've only been working for the last lifetime. These guys have been holding stuff for thousands of years.
Thousands of years. Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, Julian, I really can't get my head around. I'm going to use a dualistic term here, whether it be pro-humanity Earth or negative humanity Earth, whether they're almost working together to keep me from getting to that point, because I do feel now that I'm ready to start having those discussions.
And talk
because
to them.
I've never been under so much forceful, like kicked out of meditation, or have those fucking remote viewing crews from India just being pests. It's as you can tell, it's irritating.
It's as if there's a place where you say, look, the gig's up here, okay? Like, let me do what I'm going to do. I mean, there's nothing stopping me here. The place that you're standing out like a sore thumb is because there's this place that says you got to stop them from doing what they're doing, but you don't. That's not your job.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'm aware of that, but
Okay.
it seems as if I'm even in dream state and stuff like that.
Right. But
I'm
your
still still fucking full. I'm still warring.
Yeah, your actions still look like they have something to be afraid of you interfering with the bigger story of humanity's ascension.
Okay.
Okay, and they're trained to that. They're trained to look at people that are firecrackers, right? So watch out for this guy. This guy is gonna blow the whole plan for everybody too quickly.
Yeah.
But honestly, it doesn't matter. You can blow it. I'm going to be talking about this more publicly coming out.
Yeah.
And sure, I'll probably get some interesting characters saying, "What makes you think you can say that?" And I'll tell them exactly, because I experienced that truth. So I like,
I'll back you there, dude. I'll back you up.
You want to test me? Whatever. It's not even worth my time.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, right, when you know, you know. And then when you know, you can't step on anyone else's toes. You literally just do your creative bit to continue to share that vibration for everyone else to awaken to, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone has to know about the Cloud 9. It was an experience for those that are more along the line, the the workaholic type of people. But you can't come. You have actually gone several times, and light workers usually do, but they realize that it's less useful to have the full awareness of it in awake state, because then they tend to look back and they don't have the escape vector perfected yet, and they're like, "Well, just take me out of the game. Like I'm done here. Like I want to leave right now." You see, and you're allowed to. And you're allowed to suicide. You're allowed to create your own deaths and whatever. Totally allowed. There is no suicide that's actually a problem. The problem is everyone else observing your suicide, because they learn from you in your choice to suicide. You see. So when we look at other suicides, it's almost like look away from the reasons why you should find a reason to suicide like that person did. Because in fact, there's no way that you can live that person's precise story. Your story always has more opportunity than anyone else you know. You yourself, us, or myself as an individual, always has more potential than anybody else that exists. Because I am sovereign in such a way that I am the clear center of all reality coming forth. So no one else has a better frame of reference for should I live or should I quit than I do. And no one else's story can be more important than my own, in a way. Anyhow, we're running past time here. Did you have any quick questions or last things you wanted to share?
Oh, look, man, was just your perspective of what my higher being's looking at the moment.
He's looking quite like a rock star. I really want to say, he's like reminds me of like this guy, like one of the Kiss band members. And he's like, when do we get to rock here? It's been too long between concerts. I'm itching.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, cheers for that one, man.
And really kind of looks like a Kiss character, not kind of like not your typical fellow.
Yeah.
Kind of intense and kind of maybe spooky on some levels. Kind of like, whoa, this guy's got some
that's
dark
what I think.
eyeliner or something.
That's what I think. Spooking people in dream state and stuff like that. When I do some work with people as well, they get a glimpse at that. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a very blunt portrayal of energy, right? It's a very blunt. Like, I'm not sugarcoating this in any way for you to try to interpret what I am. I am here. This is it. No room for interpretation, right?
Yeah.
This is, not everyone's ready for this. I'm aware, but I'm there for those that are, right? And those that need a little bit of a spiked boot up the ass, that sort of thing. No, he is 3 thumbs up, really. Quite seriously, it is.
Oh, awesome, man.
There's every reason to be excited now. There's every reason to be excited for yourself, and just let those partners in contrast say, I know we're not on the same team, but we're on the same team. Right?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, hence why I brought it up, because it was very paramount around that July period. Actually had a few reach out and spoke to them briefly, but even they got spooked very quickly. And then
you want to talk with like the top 50 so important people, because they're holding the box. What I mean.
Like, even then, soon as I'd done that, that's when the pests, as you know what they're like.
Yes.
They were just being pests, and it's like, dude, why are you even bothering? Don't be surprised, Julien, if you read on the news soon that some Australian dude's gone to India and bashed a whole household of people. Because it's like, I know where you guys live now. Like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Are you fucking serious?
So, really, where I would come from, I would just say, I have greater authority than whoever told you to do this.
Yeah.
And if you want to be out of a job, keep doing what you're doing. Or be out of a lot of things, keep doing what you're doing. Not to threaten you, but literally, I know your boss doesn't know enough about this, so he's made an error in choosing this to continue. And you stand in that resolute knowing, and that is your own badge of truth right there. Right? I mean, it literally, it's almost like impersonating a police officer. If you do it right, then you're allowed to do it. Right? But at the same time, you're at the level of those that are at the top of the old, of that old food chain system, where you could easily be in the other role with such a level of awareness that you could be calling out people to do this sort of stuff for you, right? You could easily be in those shoes.
Yeah,
The level of
that
understanding
that
you
one there,
have.
that's the interesting one too, because I have thought about because as you know, there's been a couple of times where I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna pull my gear out and let's play, but it's like, you know what, I'm actually thinking that they're like wanting me to go to that place,
Mm-hmm.
because the moment that I go there, there is no coming back, and I've been told
Correct.
that too, so
Correct.
I've got to find that balance.
So there is a way to work that out of your system a little bit. It's really odd because there's that mind part of you that has the fight in you.
Mm.
The fight. This is going to sound odd, but I'm being told
Julian, it's me,
have an
mate. Come on.
outlet. The outlet is to play some intense video games from time to time.
Intense ones, all right.
Whatever, Street Fighter or something.
All right.
Okay?
Again, you've given me permission to play the Xbox. Yeah.
Don't get addicted to it, but there's that place where your mind will get its minimum level of satisfaction in a virtual sense that doesn't actually muck up the rest of your approach to life. You see?
I might have to get the old Xbox out and play a bit of San Andreas, I think.
There you go. Yeah. All right, I'm going to let you go here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, dude.
Yeah.
I'll speak to you in the next few weeks and stuff like that,
Sure.
man. And yeah,
All
cheers,
right.
bro.
You take care.
Catch you, man.
All right, bye-bye. 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 All right, bye-bye.